Now let's begin. Austin Jefferson had built a good life. At 34, he managed a mid-sized construction firm in Sacramento, spent weekends coaching Tyler's Little League team, and came home every night to Kelsey, his wife of 8 years. They'd met in college, her bright laugh catching his attention across a crowded bar, her quick wit keeping it. She was a physical therapist with her own practice, driven and independent. Tyler, their 6-year-old, had her dark curls and Austin's gray eyes. Life hummed along predictably until the Monday Kelsey's clinic expanded to a second location across town. The new schedule meant longer hours, sometimes 12-hour shifts when they were short-staffed. They'd talked it through at the kitchen table, calculator between them, Tyler's dinosaur drawings scattered across the surface. Mom's been asking to spend more time with Tyler, Kelsey had said, not quite meeting his eyes. She could pick him up from school on my late days. Just twice a week. Austin had hesitated. Denise Ruiz made him uneasy in ways he couldn't articulate without sounding paranoid. She smiled too wide, laughed too loud, and had a way of turning every conversation into a performance. But Kelsey was her only daughter, and family mattered to her. Twice a week, he'd agreed. And I pick him up by 6:30. The arrangement started in September. By October, Austin noticed small changes. Tyler grew quieter on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, less eager to share stories about his day. When Austin asked what he did at Grandma's house, Tyler would shrug and say they watched TV or played in the yard. The kid who normally talked through dinner fell into long silences, pushing food around his plate. He's just tired, Kelsey said when Austin mentioned it. Mom tires him out with all her energy. Austin wanted to believe that. He'd met Denise's husband Carlos only a handful of times, a gray-haired man who worked third shift at a bottling plant and seemed to communicate primarily in grunts. Denise had 2 other kids from a previous marriage, Ray, who was doing a stint in county jail for assault, and Christina, a hairdresser in Reno they saw twice a year. Not exactly a tight-knit family, but Kelsey insisted her mother had mellowed with age, that becoming a grandmother had changed her. On a Thursday in late October, Austin left work early to beat traffic. He pulled up to the Ruiz house at 6:15, a squat ranch-style home in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. The lawn needed mowing. A rusted swing set sagged in the backyard, visible through the chain-link fence. Denise answered the door in a purple velour tracksuit, her dyed black hair swept into a messy bun. "Austin, you're early." She didn't move aside. Wanted to miss the rush hour. "Tyler ready. He's watching cartoons." Come in, come in." She finally stepped back, and the smell hit him, cigarettes and something chemical, like nail polish remover. "Can I get you something?" "Coffee." Carlos made a pot before he left for work. "I'm good." "Tyler." "Oh, let him finish his show. He's been such a good boy today." She led him to the living room where Tyler sat cross-legged on a worn brown couch, eyes fixed on the television. His backpack sat by the door, perfectly placed. Too perfect. "Hey buddy, ready to go?" Tyler's head snapped around. For just a second, Austin saw something in his son's face. Relief? Fear? It vanished so quickly he thought he'd imagined it. "Yeah, Dad." In the car, Tyler was quiet. Austin tried the usual questions. "How was school? What did you learn? Want to stop for ice cream?" And got monosyllabic answers. They were halfway home when Tyler shifted in his booster seat. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Tyler squirmed again, reaching back to scratch between his shoulder blades. "You okay?" "My back itches." "Did you fall at recess?" Austin glanced in the rearview mirror. Tyler was still scratching, his small fingers digging at his shirt. "No, it just itches. We'll put some cream on it when we get home." But Tyler couldn't stop. He scratched and fidgeted the whole drive, his discomfort growing more obvious. By the time Austin pulled into their driveway, the kid was nearly in tears. "All right, let's see." Austin unbuckled him and led him inside. In Tyler's bedroom, he turned on the overhead light. "Lift up your shirt, bud." Tyler hesitated. Actually hesitated, which sent the first real spike of alarm through Austin's chest. Then slowly, the boy pulled his shirt up. Austin froze. His hands started shaking. Tyler's back was covered in welts. Angry red stripes that crisscrossed his skin in a pattern too deliberate to be accidental. Some were fresh, some days old, forming layers of damage. In the center of his back, just below the shoulder blades, were 2 circular burns the size of quarters, blistered and weeping. "Jesus Christ." The words came out strangled. Austin's vision narrowed. his pulse hammering in his ears. "Tyler, what? Who did this?" "I was bad." Tyler's voice was tiny. "Grandma said I was bad." The room tilted. Austin gripped the edge of the dresser, forcing himself to breathe, to think. His son. His baby. "You're not bad. You're not." His voice broke. "We're going to the hospital. Right now." He grabbed Tyler's jacket, barely registering his own movements. The drive to Mercy General blurred into a stream of red lights and honking horns. He carried Tyler straight through the ER entrance, and the triage nurse took one look at the boy's back and got them into a room within minutes. Dr. Philip Perry was in his 50s, with steel gray hair and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything. He examined Tyler gently, asking quiet questions while a nurse took photographs and made notes. Austin sat in a plastic chair, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "The burns are from cigarettes," Dr. Perry said finally, setting down his clipboard. "The marks on his back are consistent with being struck with a belt or similar object. Some of these injuries are several days old. Mr. Jefferson, I need you to understand. I'm legally required to report this. I'm calling the police and Child Protective Services." "Call them." Austin's voice came out flat, cold. "I want whoever did this arrested. Can you tell me where Tyler's been staying?" "My mother-in-law's house. Denise Ruiz." He gave the address. Watched Dr. Perry write it down. "Twice a week for the past 6 weeks. And you noticed these injuries tonight?" He was scratching in the car. "I thought." Austin's jaw clenched. "I thought it was a rash." 2 detectives arrived within the hour, a black woman in her 40s who introduced herself as Detective Bonnie McCann, and her partner, a younger Latino guy named Julio Perez. They set up in a private consultation room while a pediatric specialist continued examining Tyler. "Walk me through the timeline," McCann said, her notepad ready. Austin told them everything: the arrangement with Denise, Tyler's behavioral changes, tonight's discovery. As he talked, he watched their expressions shift from neutral professionalism to something harder. "Has your son said anything about what happened?" Perez asked. "He said Grandma told him he was bad." McCann exchanged a look with her partner. "We'll need to interview him, but we'll wait for the child advocate. In the meantime, we're sending officers to the Ruiz residence." "Is anyone else living there?" "Her husband, Carlos. Works nights at Pacific Bottling." "Any other children in the home?" "Not that I know of." Austin leaned forward. "How long until you arrest her?" "We need to gather evidence first. Interview Tyler, your mother-in-law, any witnesses. Process the scene. The evidence is on my son's back." His voice rose. "What more do you need?" "Mr. Jefferson, I understand you're angry. You don't understand shit." Austin stood, paced to the window. The parking lot stretched below, ordinary cars in ordinary spaces. Somewhere out there, Denise Ruiz was going about her evening, probably lighting another cigarette, probably not thinking twice about what she'd done. "My son has been tortured. For weeks. And I sent him there. I put him in that house." "You couldn't have known," McCann said. "But he should have." The signs had been there. Tyler's silence, his reluctance, the way he'd hesitated before lifting his shirt. Austin had ignored his instincts because it was easier, because he hadn't wanted to fight with Kelsey about her mother. "Where's your wife?" Perez asked. Austin checked his phone. 7 missed calls from Kelsey, 3 voicemails. "At work. I haven't called her yet." "You should." "And Mr. Jefferson," McCann met his eyes. "Let us do our job. Don't go near the Ruiz house. Don't contact Denise. Let the system work." Austin nodded, but he wasn't listening. The system. The same system that would give Denise a lawyer, a trial, maybe a few years in prison if they were lucky. The same system that would put Tyler through interviews and evaluations and testimony, making him relive the worst weeks of his life over and over. The system wasn't enough. Kelsey arrived at 8:30, her face pale, her hands trembling as a nurse led her back to Tyler's room. Austin heard her cry out, a wounded animal sound that cut through the hospital's sterile quiet. He found her clutching Tyler, tears streaming down her face. "How could she?" Kelsey kept saying. "How could she do this?" They kept Tyler overnight for observation. Austin stayed in the room, watching his son sleep, thinking about the belt marks and the cigarette burns and Denise's too wide smile. Kelsey fell asleep in the chair beside him, but Austin didn't close his eyes. He pulled out his phone and started searching. California Penal Code 273A, child abuse. Punishment could range from probation to 6 years in prison. He read case after case, conviction after conviction, sentences that felt like jokes. For years. For years with good behavior. Some got probation. His son would carry these scars forever, and Denise might walk in less time than it took Tyler to finish elementary school. No, that wasn't acceptable. Austin opened a new search window and typed carefully, deleting and retyping, finding the dark corners of the internet where angry people shared angry solutions. He read for hours, absorbing information, forming the skeleton of a plan. By the time dawn light crept through the hospital window, Austin Jefferson knew exactly what he was going to do. The detectives came back the next morning with a child psychologist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Myrna Mercer, who interviewed Tyler using dolls and drawing exercises. Austin and Kelsey watched through one-way glass as their son, in his small, halting voice, described Grandma's timeout room, a storage closet where she locked him when he was bad. When he cried, she burned him. When he tried to tell her it hurt, she hit him with a belt. She said Mommy and Daddy sent me there because I was trouble. Tyler whispered to the doll in his hands. She said if I told, you wouldn't love me anymore. Kelsey broke down. Austin put his arm around her, but inside he felt nothing but a cold, clarifying rage. Detective McCann met them in the hallway afterward. We arrested Denise Ruiz this morning. Carlos is being questioned, but so far we don't have evidence he participated. He claims he worked nights and didn't know. That's bullshit, Austin said. Maybe, but we can only charge what we can prove. She paused. Your mother-in-law is denying everything. Claims Tyler's lying, that he's acting out for attention. Kelsey made a choked sound. She said Tyler's lying? Her lawyer's already talking about a plea deal. Austin felt Kelsey stiffen beside him. What kind of deal? Too early to say. But Mr. Jefferson, Mrs. Jefferson, you should prepare for the possibility that this doesn't go to trial. If she pleads out, the sentence could be reduced significantly. After McCann left, Kelsey turned to Austin. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. I want to kill her. I know. I mean it. I want her dead. I know, Kels. He pulled her close. But we can't. We have to think about Tyler. She nodded against his chest, and he felt her shoulders shake with silent sobs. Above her head, Austin stared at the wall, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Tyler came home that afternoon with a prescription for antibiotic cream and a referral to a child therapist. The next 2 weeks were a blur of police interviews, CPS visits, and court dates. Denise Ruiz was released on bail, $50,000 her daughter Christina posted. The restraining order kept her away from Tyler, but Austin saw her at the preliminary hearing, sitting in the defendant's row with her court-appointed lawyer, her face carefully blank. She looked at him once across the courtroom. Just once. And she smiled. Austin smiled back. The prosecution's case was strong. Tyler's testimony, the medical evidence, the testimony from Dr. Perry and the pediatric specialist. But strong wasn't certainty. The defense attorney, a slick-haired man named Stuart Cervantes, was already poking holes. Tyler was only 6. Children were unreliable witnesses. The injuries could have come from anywhere. They're going to offer her a deal, Kelsey said one night, her voice hollow. They were lying in bed, Tyler finally asleep after another nightmare. 3 to 5 years, maybe less. Probably. That's not enough. No, Austin agreed. It's not. He rolled over, looked at his wife in the darkness. Kels, if there was a way to make her pay, really pay, would you want to know about it? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what are you thinking? I'm thinking the system isn't designed for justice. It's designed for process. Austin, I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I need you to trust me. He took her hand. Can you do that? Another pause. Then she squeezed his fingers. Make her hurt. The next morning, Austin called in sick to work. He drove to a library in Elk Grove, 2 towns over, and used their public computer to research. Denise Ruiz wasn't just Tyler's abuser. She was a woman with a history. Austin found her divorce records from her first marriage, filed after her ex-husband claimed she had violent tendencies. He found Ray's arrest record, assault charges stemming from a bar fight, but the victim had initially filed a domestic violence complaint before changing it. He found a sealed CPS case from 15 years ago, when Christina was 12. The pattern was clear. Denise Ruiz hurt people, especially children, and she'd been getting away with it for years. Austin spent the next week learning everything about her life. He followed her to the grocery store, to her lawyer's office, to the casino where she played slots every Tuesday. He noted her routines, her friends, the places she felt safe. He bought a small digital recorder and a camera with a telephoto lens. He created a new email address and started reaching out to people from Denise's past. One responded, a woman named Lorena Sheldon who'd fostered Christina for 6 months when she was 13. They met at a coffee shop in Sacramento. I tried to tell someone, Lorena said, her hands wrapped around her mug. Christina had marks, bruises. She'd flinch when you moved too fast. But Denise was her mother, and back then, they didn't take these things as seriously. Christina went back home, and I heard she ran away at 16. Did Christina ever talk about what happened? Lorena hesitated. She said her mother had a bad temper, that she'd lock her in the closet for hours, sometimes a whole day. She looked up at Austin. Is this about your son? Yes. Then nail that bitch to the wall. Austin compiled everything into a folder, interviews, records, photographs. He built a timeline of Denise's abuse spanning 2 decades. Then he made copies and locked them in a safe deposit box at a bank in Stockton. The plea deal came 3 weeks after Tyler's hospitalization. For years in state prison, eligible for parole in 2. I can't accept this, the prosecutor, a tired-looking woman named Naomi Snyder, told them in her cramped office. Not without your approval. I know it's not what you wanted. Can we do better at trial? Austin asked. Maybe. But there's risk. Cervantes is good, and Tyler's so young. If the jury doesn't believe him. She spread her hands. For years is guaranteed. Kelsey looked at Austin. He knew what she was thinking. For years was better than nothing. It was something. Take the deal, he said. That night, he started phase 2. Austin had grown up in construction, worked his way from laborer to project manager through 15 years of hard work and night classes. He knew people. More importantly, he knew people who knew people. He made calls to old contacts, guys who'd moved into less legitimate lines of work, guys who owed him favors. Randy Holland answered on the 3rd ring. They'd worked together on a renovation project 5 years back, before Randy got busted for running a chop shop. He'd done 18 months, came out with new connections and a hatred for authority. Jefferson. Been a while. I need information, Austin said, about the prison system, where a specific inmate might end up. This personal? Very. They met at a bar in West Sacramento. Randy listened to the story, his expression darkening. My sister's got a kid, he said finally. Someone hurt him like that. I'd burn their house down with them in it. I'm thinking bigger. Randy grinned. Tell me what you need. Through Randy, Austin learned the likely prison Denise would be sent to, Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. He learned about gang hierarchies, about prison culture, about how information and influence could be bought and traded. He learned that child abusers, even in women's prisons, were at the bottom of the social ladder. There's a woman inside, Randy said. Name's Beatrice Everett. Doing 25 for manslaughter. She's got connections, runs things on her block. Her daughter's on the outside, helps coordinate. Can you set up a meeting? With the daughter? Yeah, but this ain't going to be cheap. I don't care what it costs. Beatrice's daughter, Adriana Fields, met Austin in a park in Merced. She was in her 30s, tough-looking with sleeve tattoos and guarded eyes. Austin told her about Tyler, about Denise, about the 4-year sentence. For years ain't nothing, Adriana said. She'll do 2, get out, maybe do it again. That's why I need your mother's help. What kind of help? Austin told her his plan. As he talked, Adriana's expression changed from skeptical to interested to something like respect. That's cold, she said. I like it. But it'll cost you. How much? 20,000. Austin didn't hesitate. Done. Half now, half when it's finished. They shook hands, 2 strangers united by the desire to see justice done outside the bounds of law. Denise's sentencing was on a gray February morning. The judge, an older woman named Shirley Kuhn, read the charges with controlled disgust. Tyler didn't attend, but Austin and Kelsey sat in the front row, Kelsey's hand gripping his so hard it hurt. For years in state prison, Judge Kuhn announced. Credit for time served. No contact with the victim or his family upon release. Denise stood there in her orange jumpsuit, her face blank. She didn't look at them, didn't apologize, just turned when the bailiff gestured and let herself be led away. Outside the courthouse, Kelsey cried. Austin held her and watched the gray sky and thought about what came next. Denise arrived at Chowchilla 3 days later. Austin tracked her through contacts Randy had provided, following her progress through intake and classification. She was assigned to a general population unit, a dormitory-style building housing 70 women. Beatrice Everett was in the same unit. The first week, nothing happened. Austin waited, anxious, checking in with Adriana every few days. "These things take time," she told him. "My mom's careful. She's building trust." "Tyler has nightmares every night," Austin said. "He won't go to school unless Kelsey or I walk him to the classroom. Time isn't something we have a lot of. 2 more weeks. I promise." Austin spent those weeks being the father Tyler needed. He took time off work, rearranged his schedule to be home more. He and Tyler saw Dr. Mercer twice a week, working through trauma in a sunny office filled with toys and art supplies. Slowly, carefully, his son started healing. But Austin couldn't heal. Not yet. Not until he knew Denise was suffering the way Tyler had suffered. The call came on a Wednesday night. "It's done," Adriana said. "What happened?" "My mom made friends with your mother-in-law. Acted sympathetic, listened to her story." Denise told everyone who'd listened that the charges were bullshit, that her grandson was a little liar, that she was the real victim. Adriana paused. Mom let it get around what Denise was really in for. And she let it slip that Denise was planning to fight for visitation rights when she got out. Said she'd convinced herself she could get the restraining order lifted. Austin's breath caught. And 3 women jumped her in the showers yesterday. Broke her arm in 2 places, fractured her jaw. Guards didn't see nothing until it was over. Jesus. She's in the infirmary now. They'll probably move her to administrative segregation when she's healed up, for her own protection. That means 23 hours a day in a cell the size of a closet. Alone. For the rest of her sentence. Adriana's voice held satisfaction. Mom says Denise cried the whole time. Said she was sorry. Begged them to stop. Like Tyler had begged, Austin thought. Like his 6-year-old son had pleaded with his grandmother to stop hurting him. "Thank you," he managed. "The other half of the payment? I'll drop it off tomorrow." He hung up and sat in the darkness of his living room. Down the hall, Tyler was sleeping. Actually sleeping, without nightmares, for the first time in weeks. Kelsey was reading in bed, trying to find some normalcy in their shattered routine. Austin poured himself a whiskey and thought about justice. The legal system had given Denise 4 years. Austin had given her something else: fear, pain, and the knowledge that she'd never be safe again. Even in administrative segregation, the other inmates would know what she was. Child abuser. Every day for the next 2 years would be a fight to survive, and when she got out, she'd be a broken woman with a target on her back. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. The next morning, Austin dropped an envelope full of cash at the agreed-upon location, a locker at a bus station in Modesto. He didn't see Adriana, didn't need to. The job was done. 3 months later, Tyler went back to school full-time. He still saw Dr. Mercer, still had bad days, but he was laughing again, playing with his friends. Being a kid. Austin got a call from Detective McCann. "I thought you should know, Denise Ruiz was assaulted in prison. She's in protective custody now." "I heard something about that," Austin said neutrally. "Funny thing. We looked into it, talked to some of the inmates involved. They said someone inside had told them what Ruiz did to your son. Really detailed information, stuff that wasn't in the public record." McCann paused. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "No idea." "Right." Another pause. "Mr. Jefferson, I get it. I really do. But if you had anything to do with this." "Detective, I've been focused on my son, taking care of my family. Whatever happened to Denise Ruiz in prison, that's between her and the other inmates." "Uh-huh." McCann sighed. "Well, for what it's worth, child abusers don't do well in lockup, general population or not. She's got 2 years ahead of her, and it's going to be rough." "Good," Austin said, and hung up. But Austin wasn't done. The assault had been satisfying, yes, but it was reactive. He wanted something permanent, something that would follow Denise long after her release. He started with the family. Christina had posted Denise's bail, had stood by her mother even after hearing what she'd done. Austin reached out through a mutual acquaintance, a woman who worked at Christina's salon in Reno. "Tell Christina I have information about her mother," Austin said. "Information she needs to hear." They met at a diner off I-80. Christina looked tired, wary. She'd dyed her hair platinum blonde since Austin last saw her at the preliminary hearing. "What do you want?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from him. Austin pushed a folder across the table. The truth about your mother. Christina flipped it open. Inside were copies of the old CPS report, Lorena Sheldon's statement, medical records from Christina's childhood showing repeated injuries. There were photos, too, of Christina at 13, bruised and hollow-eyed. Her hands started shaking. I don't remember, she whispered. Your brain protected you, but your body remembers. Austin leaned forward. She did to you what she did to Tyler. Worse, probably, over more years. And when you finally got away, you convinced yourself it was normal. That all mothers were like that. Tears spilled down Christina's cheeks. She said I fell. That I was clumsy. You weren't clumsy. You were abused. Austin kept his voice gentle. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know. And because when she gets out, she's going to come to you for help. Maybe ask to stay with you. Maybe ask for money. I won't. You posted her bail. You stood by her even after Tyler. Some part of you still wants to believe she's capable of change. Austin tapped the folder. This is proof she's not. She's been hurting people her whole life. She'll never stop unless someone stops her. Christina closed the folder with shaking hands. What do you want me to do? Cut her off. Completely. When she gets out and she has nowhere to go, no one to help her, that's when she'll really understand what she's lost. Christina nodded slowly. My therapist always said I had boundary issues with her. Now you know why. She left with the folder, her eyes red but something like resolution in her face. 2 weeks later, Austin heard through Randy that Christina had filed for a restraining order against Denise. She'd also written a letter to the parole board, to be read when Denise came up for early release, detailing her own childhood abuse. One more brick in the wall Austin was building around his mother-in-law. Next was Carlos, the husband who'd claimed ignorance, who'd worked nights and supposedly never noticed. Austin didn't believe that for a second. He started surveillance again, following Carlos from the bottling plant to his regular stops, a bar near the freeway, a convenience store where he bought lottery tickets, the Ruiz house where he still lived alone. Austin documented everything, looking for leverage. He found it at the bar. Carlos drank too much, got loud, and on a Thursday night in April, he drove home swerving across lanes. Austin followed at a distance, recording everything on his phone. When Carlos pulled into his driveway, Austin made an anonymous call to the police tip line. Drunk driver just pulled into 2847 Maple Street. Guy nearly hit 3 cars on the way. The patrol car arrived 10 minutes later. Carlos failed the field sobriety test, refused the breathalyzer, and spent the night in county jail. His third DUI meant mandatory jail time and loss of license. But Austin wasn't done with him. He used Randy's connections to get Carlos's work schedule, then broke into the Ruiz house when he knew it would be empty. He didn't take anything, didn't vandalize. He just looked, searched, and in the storage closet, Tyler's timeout room, he found what he needed. Scratches on the inside of the door, small and desperate. Marks on the wall at a child's height. A blanket wadded in the corner, stained and musty. Austin photographed everything, then left as quietly as he'd come. He sent the photos to Detective McCann with a note. Might want to check this out for the case file. McCann called him the next day. Where did you get these? Anonymous tip, Austin said. Right. Anonymous. She sighed. We're reopening the investigation into Carlos Ruiz. These photos show evidence he had to have known what was happening. Good. Carlos was arrested 2 weeks later as an accessory to child abuse. His public defender tried to argue ignorance, but the evidence was damning. The closet, his presence in the house, the fact that he'd never questioned why Tyler came home with injuries. The jury didn't buy it. He got 2 years, to be served consecutively with his DUI sentence. Both of them locked up. Both of them suffering. But Austin still wasn't satisfied. Denise's parole hearing was scheduled for 18 months into her sentence. Austin prepared for it like a military campaign. He organized letters from Tyler's doctors, his teachers, Dr. Mercer. He got statements from Lorena Sheldon, from 3 of Denise's former neighbors who'd witnessed her temper, from Christina detailing her own abuse. The hearing was closed, but Austin attended as Tyler's representative. He sat across from Denise for the first time since her sentencing, and he saw what prison had done to her. She'd aged a decade in a year and a half. Her dyed hair had grown out gray, her skin sallow. The broken arm had healed crooked. She sat hunched, diminished, nothing like the loud woman who'd smiled at him in court. When it was Austin's turn to speak, he looked directly at her. "My son still has nightmares," he said. "He's 6 years old, and he's afraid of the dark because you locked him in closets. He flinches when people raise their voices because you screamed at him while you burned him with cigarettes. He has scars on his back that he'll carry for the rest of his life." Denise wouldn't meet his eyes. "You showed him no mercy. You deserve none in return." Austin stood. "I will be at every parole hearing for the rest of your sentence. I will make sure the board knows exactly who you are and what you've done. You'll serve every single day of your 4 years, and when you get out, you'll have nothing. No family, no home, no one who'll help you. That's the justice you've earned." The board denied her parole unanimously. Walking out of the prison, Austin felt something unclench in his chest. Not quite peace, but close. Tyler turned 7 that summer. They had a party at the house with his friends from school, with cake and presents and the kind of chaos that meant kids were having fun. Tyler laughed as he opened gifts, his eyes bright, the shadows that had haunted him finally fading. Kelsey pulled Austin aside in the kitchen. "She's done," she said quietly. "We won." "Yeah," Austin agreed. "We did." But that night, after Tyler was asleep and the house was quiet, Austin sat at his computer and pulled up a file he'd been working on. A detailed account of everything he'd done, the assault he'd arranged, the break-in, the surveillance, the manipulation of Christina and Carlos. He'd documented it all, including the contacts he'd used, the money he'd paid, the laws he'd broken. He encrypted it, made 3 copies on USB drives, and put them in 3 different safe deposit boxes in 3 different cities. Insurance, in case anyone ever came after him. Proof that he'd had good reasons for everything he'd done. Then he closed the file and went to bed. 2 years after Tyler's hospitalization, Denise Ruiz was released from prison. Austin got the notification from Victim Services and passed it along to Kelsey without comment. They'd prepared for this, made sure their security was tight, ensured the restraining order was still active. Denise didn't come near them. According to the PI Austin had hired to monitor her, she went to a halfway house in Fresno, took a job cleaning hotel rooms, and largely disappeared from public life. Christina wouldn't speak to her. Carlos was still in prison. She had no friends, no community, no one who gave a damn whether she lived or died. 6 months after her release, the PI reported that Denise had been fired from her job for stealing from guests. 2 months after that, she was evicted from the halfway house for repeated violations. The last update Austin received placed her at a homeless shelter in Bakersfield. He stopped tracking her after that. She'd become what she deserved to be, nothing. A cautionary tale. A woman who'd hurt children and lost everything because of it. Tyler, meanwhile, thrived. He was 8 now, playing soccer, doing well in school, building the kind of childhood that should never have been interrupted by trauma. He still saw Dr. Mercer occasionally, but the nightmares had stopped. The scars on his back were fading. One evening, Austin was helping Tyler with homework when his son looked up suddenly. "Dad, do you think Grandma Denise ever thinks about what she did?" Austin chose his words carefully. "I think she probably does." "Do you think she's sorry?" "I don't know, buddy. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're safe now, and she can't hurt you anymore." Tyler nodded, satisfied, and went back to his math problems. Austin watched him work. This resilient kid who'd survived hell and come out the other side, and felt a fierce pride. The system had given Denise 4 years. Austin had given her a lifetime of consequences. Every relationship destroyed, every comfort stripped away, every day a reminder that actions had repercussions. It wasn't the revenge people saw in movies. There was no dramatic confrontation, no moment where he stood over her and declared victory. But it was complete, thorough, and most importantly, permanent. That weekend, Austin took Tyler to the batting cages. They spent an hour hitting balls, Tyler's swing getting stronger and more confident with each attempt. Afterward, they got ice cream and sat in the parking lot eating it while the sun set. "This is nice," Tyler said, chocolate smeared on his chin. "Yeah, it is, buddy. I love you, Dad. I love you too." And in that moment, covered in ice cream and basking in his son's smile, Austin Jefferson knew he'd done the right thing. The system had its place, but some forms of justice required a personal touch. Denise Ruiz had learned that lesson the hard way, and she'd be learning it for the rest of her life. 3 years after the initial incident, Austin received a call from Detective McCann. He almost didn't answer. They hadn't spoken since Carlos's trial, but curiosity got the better of him. Mr. Jefferson, I thought you'd want to know. Denise Ruiz is dead. Austin felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just a blank acknowledgement of fact. How? Overdose. They found her in a motel room in Bakersfield. Looks like she'd been using for a while, heroin mostly. No one reported her missing. No family claimed the body. Thanks for letting me know. There's something else. McCann paused. We found a note. Not quite a suicide note, but close. She wrote about her daughter, her grandson, about mistakes she'd made. She mentioned Tyler specifically? No, just said she was sorry for hurting people, that she knew she deserved what happened to her. After they hung up, Austin sat with the news. Part of him wanted to feel victorious, the enemy defeated, the battle won. But mostly he just felt tired. He told Kelsey that evening. She cried, though she couldn't explain why. I hated her, she said. I wanted her to suffer. But I didn't want this. I know. Do you think, did we do this? Did we push her to it? Austin thought about the assault, the isolation, the systematic destruction of every support Denise had. She did it to herself, he said finally. Everything that happened to her was a consequence of her choices. She hurt Tyler. She hurt Christina. She hurt people her whole life and never faced real consequences until now. But we made sure those consequences were worse than what the law would have given her. Yes, Austin admitted. We did. And I don't regret it. Kelsey was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. Neither do I. They didn't tell Tyler. He was 9 now, focused on school and friends and the upcoming science fair. The ghost of his grandmother didn't need to haunt him anymore. Austin went back to work, back to his life, back to being the father and husband his family needed. But late at night, sometimes he'd think about the choice he'd made, to step outside the law, to deliver justice with his own hands. Some people would call it wrong, immoral, criminal. Austin called it necessary. Because in the end, Tyler was safe. Tyler was healing. Tyler was the happy, healthy kid he deserved to be. And Denise Ruiz, child abuser, torturer, monster, had paid for what she'd done. Not with 4 years in a comfortable prison cell. With everything. On Tyler's 10th birthday, 4 years after that terrible Thursday evening, Austin stood in the backyard watching his son play with his friends. The scars on Tyler's back were barely visible now, faint white lines that would fade more with time. The psychological scars were healing too, slowly but steadily. Kelsey came up beside him, slipping her hand into his. They'd weathered the storm together, their marriage stronger for having survived it. You ever think about what you did? She asked quietly. Every day. Any regrets? Austin watched Tyler laugh, watched him run and play without fear, without the shadow of trauma hanging over him. Not a single one. Because that was the truth. He'd done what needed to be done. He'd protected his son in the only way that mattered. Not just by removing the threat, but by ensuring that threat could never return. The law had its place. But some evils required a different kind of justice. Austin Jefferson had delivered that justice, and he'd do it again in a heartbeat. His son was safe. His family was whole. And the monster who'd hurt them was gone. That was all that mattered. That was enough. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.